it seems as though there is a big, or at least sizable, patch coming at the end of the season. There has been many things leaked, and a Reddit post here by Southern Gnome, shout out to him, has compiled some of these leaks all together. How have we got these leaks? Is it birds are tweeting? No. This is a genuine leak where on the Playing Gwent website there's been a change. If you click this link here, for example, when you add a deck to this Playing Gwent website, as I often do, the provisions and everything like that is as normal. But yesterday there was a bit of a glitch because it was showing certain cards with different provisions and different powers, and sometimes without card text as well. And we've actually previously had something similar to this when there was revealed cards on the Master Mirror expansion. Some of them that ended up getting slight tweaks would update on the Gwent website as well, and they said they were just testing it. It wasn't an official change as of yet. So it does seem to suggest that these changes on the Plague Gwent website that happened yesterday and have now been fixed are linked to some tests, or at least some ideas that the Plague Gwent team have, the Gwent team have about what to do with this patch. And what I think is really important for the game is that we do keep getting these little reworks here and there, because with the latest expansion we had probably, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, 20 cards that just had subtle reworks, and even some of them still pretty bad, but just having a few extra cards, like for instance the Giant Enchantress in Skellige, it's just great. It adds to the feel of the game. It feels like a new card, more to play around with, and I think if they can do that every patch, rework a few cards, because goodness me, there's a lot of cards in this game that need a rework. But let's have a look to see what we've got. I've also gone ahead and pulled up all these cards in Gwent, so we can have a look at that too. First up, we've got Imrith. Imrith is now looking like 2 power and 10 provisions. Remember, this is definitely not final by any stretch, but has potential. So these are the cards that are being reworked from monsters. Imrith currently is setting an allied unit's power to 7, and this dominance ability, which has always been super weird, set a unit's power to 7, which would be your opponent's side of the board set to 7, but you need dominance to do that. Just doesn't make any sense. Like, if okay, you might have a 14 strength unit and your opponent does as well, so then it plays for 7, but like, how often is that going to happen? It'll be a 14-point play. It's never going to happen, right? And it's 12 provisions. So he is coming in at 2 power and 10 provisions, so it looks like a sizable rework for Imrith. Might have a completely different ability or something like that. Caranthea, 4 power, 8 provisions. I think I can make a good prediction on this one. I'm pretty sure Caranthea is getting that point buff because his ability is going to be changed slightly to only spawn 1 power base copies of a monster's unit. So in other words, rip Ethereal Caranthea combo. That would also mean this like 1 point nerf to Ethereal is probably more fair. Caranthea onto Ethereal is just kind of a bit cringe, but you never know, they could rework it completely. Obviously, he's a pretty cool card. You can use the Beast on him, but maybe he gets like a bit of a better link with cards like Eredin as well. We'll see. I think Caranthea as a card is very cool. I think just maybe doesn't need to have that copying a neutral units. He could just be monsters. Gels is now going to be 2 power by the looks of things and 8 provisions, so in line with what you'd expect from a tutor card. Maybe he's going to be that Wild Hunt shooter card that lots of people were calling for. Gels, traditionally back in the day, he worked very similar to Nalgafar. He was the OG sort of tutor card for golds. Maybe he's going to be a Wild Hunt shooter card. That would maybe mean Ardgaith gets a bit of play, because at the moment, no one's playing this card, so it'll be really, really nice to see that. The other one in the monsters is the Old Spear Tip Asleep, which currently is 9 power, 10 provisions. It looks like it's going to be 9 power, 9 provisions. Little bit of love, why not? No one's ever playing this card at 10 provisions. Probably no one plays it at 9, but whatever. It's better to have the option, I suppose. So there's that. Up next, let's move on to the neutral cards, because these are probably, in fact, yeah, go on, they're possibly the most interesting, but let's do it anyway. Where are we? We are here. So, Master Mirror, by the looks of things, is going to be 9 provisions. He'll keep his ability. And Sirinova is going to be 9 power, by the looks of things, early days, 9 provisions. This at the very least just gives us an idea of these sorts of cards they're looking at. Not definite changes, but it gives us a picture of what they're considering doing, which is nice to have. On allied turn start, if this is the only unit in your graveyard, summon it to a random allied row. So if you play this card and you play a couple of specials and you pass, you're going to have 9 carryover. Pretty interesting. Yeah, lots of downsides to this card, but it's kind of cool still. It's kind of cool. We'll see if it sees any play. I've also then, if we look at the, I'm pretty sure that's all the neutral, there's one single Square Tail card, which is the Dwarven Agitator, which is going to be 3 power and 4 provisions by the look of it. So I'd imagine it keeps its ability, boost a dwarf in your hand. Bit of love for Sheldon Skaggs, which is nice to see. This card is not actually that bad. Circle of Life is already a little bit of support for him. Maybe you can try and play like an Aglace and Sheldon deck or something like that. That could be kind of interesting. Sheldon only working off hand buffs. It's just going to be a nice option for some of your boosts. Interesting to see if that makes a difference. It's still the Dwarven Agitator, not a great card, but could see some play. Let's look next at, well, Syndicate is just 1 card, Dies Array. 9 provisions. At the moment, it's 10 provisions as an Echo card. It's not very good. At 9 provisions, okay, you can start to get behind it a little bit more. It is a crime card, so you've got potential Intimidate synergy. You can tutor it with Furco. Maybe this is a little bit better. It's definitely a little bit better. Dice Ray was never completely terrible, but it's still a bit of an awkward card, so much needed change. So get NR next. We'll get on to SK last, because there's probably the most to talk about there. Northern Realms has a few interesting ones, and there's also a couple of leader changes that we'll talk about at the end as well. Adalia looking like she's going to be 10 provisions, 3 strength. I would anticipate this works very similar to Caranthea, in it gets the treatment of only spawn a Northern Realms unit, so it would kill off the Vanguard combo, which, to be honest, I'm very glad about. It's a very boring combo in my opinion, and it brings Adalia back into what she's supposed to be, which is a shield for your engines. Maybe she obviously gets a bit more of a rework, but I would imagine if Caranthea's getting that change, it probably makes sense to give Adalia that change as well. Visegard has he was missing his card text, which suggests his abilities getting changed. There's some speculation in the Gwent thread that he is maybe losing his formation, which would mean that he doesn't have a Zeal anymore, which would be a massive nerf. Also, the other one I've heard being thrown about as an idea, and something I've suggested in the past, is that Visegard will just boost. He'll get charges for the boosts in a single row rather than the full thing. And you might be thinking, God, Northern Realms doesn't need this, but I strongly argue Visegard is just overtuned. He is just way too good in my opinion, and he's a big reason I think Uprising is the top don in terms of Northern Realms leader abilities. Okay, you've got Einsis and Anna, which also do very, very well in an Uprising deck, and it's just a solid ability. But I think Visegard is probably the main powerhouse behind it. The two other changes are the Siege support and the Artificer. The Artificer looks like it's going to be 4 power, 4 provisions, so just getting a point buff, and it will probably keep formation. It's a card that's seen a little bit of play. It's a cool card. I think it just needs a little bit of love, so I rate it. And the Siege support as well. Let me check what the Siege support's saying. I think it's just a power increase as well. The Siege support, 4 power, 4 provisions. Again, decent, cool card with a cool ability. Just needs a little bit of love, I think, and could see some play certainly in Foltest decks, and maybe even like with Ildiko and Selkirk, you could whack one of these in at 4 provisions. It doesn't feel as bad anymore. Should be quite interesting to see how that one goes. Up next, last but certainly not least, we've got Skellige, and then we're going to talk about the potential leader abilities as well that we've seen. Skellige. So, Harold has got completely, or did have, because they fixed it, no power or provision change, but the ability text has been removed. So Harold seems as though he's getting a rework. This could just be like similar to Visegard. It could be a complete rework, or it could just be a slight tweak. You imagine he stays somewhat similar. I think basically this card needs to be doomed. I think that would be a big factor in it. If this card doomed, so it can be removed and it can't just be second winded. But also, even without that, he's very, very good anyway. I'm not sure what will happen with this card. This card's just really very, very good. Maybe it puts like a provision cost on the... It's not just a bronze warrior. Maybe it's like a bronze warrior 5 provisions or less, so you can't res great swords potentially. Already it gives them doomed. I think this looks like there's going to be second wind change, which we'll talk on in a minute. So I would imagine you can't res Harold anyway with second wind. But Harold's just good in all SK decks. So hard to tell with this one, but certainly looks like he's getting some sort of change. I would anticipate maybe as well this doesn't ignore armor. That's possible. We'll see. Maybe it's a provision like limit, like a 5 provision limit. I think that could also be very, very fair. Turgvi, currently 4 power, 11 provisions. Turgvi looks like he's going to be 5 power and 11 provisions. Now I would anticipate Rupture then is going to get a slight rework where it takes 2 turns to go off. So it would be like a timer on Rupture. So rather than playing Rupture and then you can pass, you'd have to play Rupture, play another card, then pass. So it can't abuse the coin flip. I think that's all this card needs. And looks like it's getting extra power as well. And obviously Second Wind possibly getting changed, so you won't be able to res it, hopefully. Faber Priest. What a popular card this used to be. And a very cool card for Skellige. It is going to come in at 3 power and then damage the unit to the right, and it's going to go up to 5 power. So it's in the range of Oil and Thunders, which these days are much more common than they were maybe a few months ago. And it looks as though it is getting a provision increase to 5 provisions. Wow. This card used to be like an auto-include, and I feel like this is going to be a very good card that's going to help Skellige move away from this greatsword, boats, and currently what else it's got, like the Drummond Berserker and all these sorts of things, which it's a bit scary that none of these other Skellige cards, such as the Villager and the Drummond Berserker, I believe it's called a Drummond Berserker, a bit scary that we're not seeing any changes in these cards. But again, it's not an exhaustive list. It's very early days. We don't know really what this is. It could mean nothing, but I was expecting these cards to catch a nerf for sure. We'll see though. But the Cyber Priest, 3 power, 5 provisions, and I feel like that is a big buff to Draco Turtle decks. Maybe we're going to see Draco Turtle as the new way of playing Second Wind. That could be pretty interesting to see wherever it is. It's here somewhere. I know it's 10 provisions there. Works really well with this card. Really, really interesting card. I wonder if that is going to be something we see. And then we've also got the Demon Pirate here, which on the Reddit post says it's just got the same provision and power, but the ability is removed. So currently this card moves to the top of your deck. Move the top card in your deck to your graveyard. Seems as though this is going to get some sort of rework, because this is a bit of an unplayable card, because obviously you could hit something really, really bad. So they're the changes to cards, but there's a few leader abilities to mention as well. Second Wind, which I've talked about 12 times, and maybe we could have touched on that earlier. 12 provisions, that is a buff to Second Wind. But on the Play Gwent, I don't know why I keep calling it Play Gwent. On the Gwent Discord, the Gwent Partners Discord, when the nerf, the hotfix came out to Second Wind, they did say it probably wasn't going to be a long-term fix. It was just for the hotfix. They knew that Second Wind was way too good and they needed to tone it down. So I would imagine the 12 provisions is a sure sign that Second Wind is going to have a limit on provision cost of resing. I think that 10 would be a fair number, because if you look at these cards, they're all pretty fair. But my issue with that is maybe Morkvarg and maybe Dagar. Maybe they're fair. I mean, I kind of just hate this card. I'm just a bit of a hater. But I kind of hate greatswords generally. So maybe 10's fair. It would mean you can't res Boat, you can't res Hemdall, you can't res Bergvi, you can't res Harold. Pretty important. That is very good. But if you were to like put Dagar at 11, or if you were to put Morkvarg at 11, maybe it's just supposed to be 9, because Lippy's a bit of a dodgy one to res. That can be kind of spooky with some decks, but probably not the end of the world. Like those triple Getty decks are just a bit weird, really. But yeah, maybe 9 is a bit more fair. I think it'll probably be 10 though, and I imagine, judging by the look of it, that everything's going to stay the same as well. But it could be 9, and maybe some of those cards will get a rework. Who knows? Because I imagine this is early days testing. This might not be the full list. There might be more. They might not use all of these. We just don't know. But I would say 9 is a bit of a fairer cost, but maybe just reducing the provisions on some of these cards to 9, or making it 10 and maybe just making a card like Morkvarg, and maybe Lippy. I mean, Lippy could probably do with a nerf anyway. I don't know. Maybe I feel like Lippy at 11 is fair, because I don't know, whatever. Not really important right now anyway. Let's be fair. So Second Wind getting a change, which is great to see. The other leader abilities, Guerrilla Tactics. It says the charge count was removed. So what is Guerrilla Tactics, you ask? Very good question. It is the movement one. So at the moment, it moves a unit to the other row. If it's an enemy, damage it by 2. If it's an ally, boost it by 2, and you have charge 3. The charge seems to be gone from that, but that doesn't mean anything. It just means they're working on it, which is great to see. Some dodgy leader abilities that just don't see any play but have cool abilities still. Hopefully just getting a bit of a buff. The other one is something I've been wanting for the longest time, Carapace. The same thing. It's card text changed, I believe. It just disappeared, the card text. Yeah, Carapace down here. So looks like Carapace is maybe finally getting the 3rd charge. Wouldn't that be nice? That would be just beautiful to see. it's a really cool ability with Imrith as well. Sorry, Eredin particularly. And by the looks of it, Imrith's getting some sort of rework as well. So maybe this is a card you're going to want to give a shield to too. So, what do you guys think? Thoughts on this? Are we going to see more than this? Is this going to be all of them? Which ones do you think are good? Which ones do you think are bad? Is there anything that you would love to see a rework? Can you give me maybe a card you'd like reworked? What provision, what power are you going to go for? For me, a card I would love to see reworked. I'm just going to pick a random one. There's loads. I'm obviously going to stick to the Northern Realms. And I'm going to say 2 cards I would like reworked. I'm going to go for a gold card, which is Prophet Lebioda. I would like Prophet Lebioda to work exactly like Reynard, because Reynard got this buff a long time ago, where he used to just boost whenever you play a unit, but then he got this deploy ability, which is boost adjacent units by 1. I would love it if Prophet Lebioda could give shields on deploy to adjacent units. If that's too good, which it probably isn't that good. It probably is quite good, but it's still an awkward card to include. Maybe just give 1 shield on deploy. I think that would be really, really nice, because you can set your engines up and then protect them later, rather than playing this to protect your engines, and then it means your engines get less points. That'd be great. And another rework. Okay, Sabrina's Inferno to go through armor. Just saying, that would be nice. Mad Kian, I saw a really good one. Mad Kian could maybe, rather than the death blow of destroying him, he could damage itself by excess damage. So let's say there's a 3-think unit, and I dealt 5 damage. It would damage itself by 2 afterwards. Maybe Mad Kian's fine. Yep, there's another one. I would also like Margarita, maybe. I don't know. Bloody Flail, some sort of rework. This card's just bad. Make it 5 provisions, and I might include it in my deck, to be fair. Yeah, and the one I am actually wanting to talk about most of all, I'm just going to skip through. There's quite a few dodgy cards, such as this Siege Master resupply. The next card I want to rework is one of the best card arts in the game, the Rune Word. I'd love this card to get some sort of a rework, because this is just massively below the power curve. It's also a spell from the Kira Metz days. Think about how long that was. Kira Metz could play spells. That's like a year ago that this card was relevant. The spell tag is just very, very pointless in Northern Realms. It's a shame you've got these spells. You used to have to play all these through Kira Metz, but then Kira Metz just lost her ability to play spells, which is really annoying because Menno can still play tactics. So I'm still triggered about that. But anyway, yeah, there's a list of the changes. If you guys would like me to do like top 10 rework ideas for each faction, let me know, because I'm going to be bringing you some top 10 videos soon. Part of my plan for over the summer is less just content just on decks and things like that, because I want to keep doing that. But I've got loads of ideas of different videos. I'm going to do like top 10 premiums, top 10 Easter eggs. I'm going to do all the Easter eggs from the Master Mirror expansion, some of the cool card text, things you might not have noticed. I can do all that sort of stuff if you guys are interested. It's definitely something I'm going to look into doing. YouTube content is where it's at for the summer. YouTube content, learning to drive, and getting back lifting weights. That's my ambition. Bang. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. If someone from CDPAR is watching this and you're mad at me for covering this, namaste. I think that makes sense. Hopefully you guys don't really care, because I think it's out in the open, right? There's a Reddit post about it, so yeah. Cool. I'll link the Reddit post in the description as well. Yeah. See ya.